My name is Noid, and I'm one of the organizers of the LayerOne conference down in Anaheim, California. We've been running since 2003. We did take a break in 2010, as did a number of other conferences, simply because nobody's working, nobody has any money, nobody's going to come to your security conference. So we started this solely because kind of, it's funny, there's a huge glut of security conferences now. There's tons. There's so many security conferences that they're getting hyper-focused on what they do. It's just, they're everywhere. And they're everything from high-budget productions to low-budget productions. But when we started, it was basically Hope, DEF CON, TorCon. That was about it. ShmooCon actually started a year after us. And then suddenly everybody, a couple years later, everybody and their brothers throwing a security conference. So we got it going largely because we lived in the Los Angeles area. And one thing we noticed is I lived in LA at the time, and we'd go to DEF CON. And you'd be standing there talking to really cool people at DEF CON. And you'd say, man, you're pretty cool. I'd love to chat with you some more. Where do you live? And half of them would be like, well, I live in LA. You'd say, that's weird. I do security stuff in Los Angeles, and I've never run across you. And oh yeah, there's nothing going on in LA. And then we kind of thought about it and realized that, yeah, for whatever bizarre reason, there was a ton of computer security people in the Los Angeles Basin and Orange County areas, but there was nothing in the LA and Orange County area in terms of an event. You get little one-off things that were usually thrown by vendors that would, more of a ploy to get you to come in and listen to the sales pitch. Yeah. There was, for whatever reason, no security conference. I mean, TorCon's down in San Diego, but if you live down that way, you understand there's almost a geographical dividing line between San Diego and everything else in Southern California. And you can tell it's got the nice weather. It's really pleasant. LA is densely overpopulated, and Orange County is just expensive as all get out. So we threw an event in Los Angeles. And our initial one was actually in LA. We threw it in one of the hotels by LAX.
So how was the first event like? Was it a hugely attended? Was it what?
First event was weird. It was really weird. We kind of didn't know what. I'd been doing DEF CON for years, but this was the first time I'd ever been on like that depth of organization. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what we were doing. We ended up actually getting about 120 people.
Wow.
That some really interesting, diverse backgrounds. I mean, Dan Kaminsky turned up at it. Beetle from ShmooCon turned up at it. Some crazy lady turned up at it. I mean, tinfoil hat, whole 9 yards. The talks we had were interesting too. They were really, really varied. We had one of the guys, can't believe I'm slipping his name right now, but we had one of the Lifehacker guys come and talk.
Wow.
And I think he was with Lifehacker. But he gave a really neat talk on like the 10 habits of highly effective geeks. We had another talk where a guy was talking about, numerology and Masons and, conspiracy theory stuff that got kind of scary once he started backing it up with uncomfortable facts. In addition to like technical talks, about hacking and about, everything from physical hacking through exploiting software. And interesting group of people. The location we learned, every year we learn our lessons. The location literally was across the street from LAX. If you've ever been down there in that area, you realize that there's nothing to do, and wandering around outside is dangerous. As well as the event itself, the next day, the second day of our conference, we were cohabitating the area with the Nation of Islam. That was interesting. We actually fixed their network.
Oh,
yeah, it's kind of nice knowing the Nation of Islam owes you one. So they came up and said as much. It's kind of nice. But we actually got their network fixed, so they were able to watch their webcast.
Oh, nice.
So, and then we moved to Pasadena. I really liked in Pasadena.
Yeah.
The Pasadena shows were really good. It was just urban enough that there was things to do, but not so densely urban that you felt like you were and, escape from LA. And then 2 years ago, we moved it to Anaheim, California, right next to Disneyland. And as far as I'm concerned, I really like the location.
Hackers at Disney?
Disneyland hacking, the convention center's right there. It's in an area that's designed for you to walk around and have things to do. It's safe. I really, really like the current. The only thing we've changed this year is we're no longer at the Marriott, we're at the Clarion.
Well, so have you found that the talks that are happening at LayerOne have become more focused over the years now, or are you still getting that broad diversity from masonry to network hacks?
We actually try to focus it more now. Part of that came out of us not knowing what we wanted to be when we grew up. When we first started our conference, it was we were actually dead set against not calling it a hacker conference. Don't call it a hacker conference. Call it a security convention or something to that effect, but we did not want to call it a hacker conference, and we were a hacker conference. We just kind of tried to be something else for a long time.
Put on a mask.
And eventually, once we realized that, no, let's just be the best darn hacker conference we can possibly be, and then, our talks start getting a lot more focused. We have a lot more conversation. Our talks every year are now a lot more focused on things like mobile malware, less and less talks on things like HIPAA and PCI compliance, more talks on malware, exploiting social media.
So more of the applicable and less policy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely geared more towards the developer or practitioner crowd, and less towards the suit and tie type, because we realized we were having a situation where we were throwing an event for the developers and the practitioners while trying to sell the content to the suit and tie types who weren't coming to our event. And eventually we had to stop and say, well, who's attending this thing? And what do they want? They don't want to hear about PCI. They want to hear about what hot trends are coming out of China in terms of mobile malware. They want to hear about forensics. They want to hear about insecurities in .NET. They want to hear about, social media hacks and things of that nature. So that's what we've been gearing more towards. We've also started including villages and other activities like
Right, you have the Lockpick Village.
we have the Lockpick Village, which I'm really happy to. Admittedly, when we first started doing the Lockpick Village, I knew my friends were good with lockpicks. I didn't realize that I was actually working with some of the people that are really freaking good at lockpicks. It's sort of like when your friends got famous, you sit back and be like, oh yeah, that guy. And yeah, it was kind of the same thing. I realized that, working with folks like DB and Olum, Skylar Town, who's actually been here before, and Datagram are big deals in the lockpicking community, and our lockpicking contest gets a lot of traction.
Yeah, that's a good time.
Last year we started with a tamper evident contest.
Is that the one that DT runs?
No, this is a different one. This is actually one that's put on, I'm not going to commit to saying it's put on by Tool, but I know a bunch of people that are in Tool are involved in it.
So for those that don't know, the Tamper Evidence Contest is really cool and fun to watch. It's essentially getting a sealed container of some sort with all sorts of tamper evidence, seals and locks and tags and ribbons. And the goal is to get inside of the container without ever showing that you were inside of it. It's really fun to watch. I think last year at DEF CON I saw people use everything from nail cleaner to liquid nitrogen into these packages.
I think we freaked the hotel out at one point when the first batch of tamper evident teams turned up, and these guys brought in doers of liquid nitrogen. They brought in tons of different scary looking chemicals and solvents, then took over some of the tables, put their own power blocks up there. One guy had a vise, attached a vise to the top of the table and got his workbench set up. It was impressive.
Wow.
And these guys were serious. These guys were real serious. I hadn't really put a lot of thought into it. I just I heard the idea behind it. That sounds like actually a lot of fun. I'd like to do that. And then the guys that showed up to compete, though, they brought it. When you've got mini grinding wheels set up and attached to the table, and drill presses, and journal attachments I've never even seen before, that kind of thing.
It's quite a piece of check luggage.
Yeah, I think those guys drove in. I would not want to fly with some of the stuff that they had. But yeah, the hotel came by on more than a couple of occasions, and we watched their eyes get kind of big. And
So is there anything for this year, LayerOne, that you're particularly excited about? Or?
Well, the Tamper Evident contest is coming back, and it's going to be bigger.
Wow.
So that alone is going to be really, really impressive. Other than that, I mean, we've got it's hard to pick my favorite. We got a pretty good solid lineup of speakers. We got Joe McRae coming back. He's become almost a resident speaker. If you guys ever have the opportunity to see Joe McRae speak about anything, he can be reading you the menu from a Chinese takeout place. He'll make it awesome. Yeah. He just will. But yeah, we've got him. I'm trying to think of who else we've got. I'm so busy with everything.
It seemed like the list of speakers is tremendous every year.
It's funny. We always end up at one point panicking that we don't have enough speakers, and then suddenly we end up with an awesome lineup of really cool people.
I think it's the usual computer nerd, oh hey, last minute, all right, turn it in.
I've actually discussed this with other conference organizers. It's not just localized to us, it's a common thing where the last 48 hours of your CFP, you can be like, okay, I'm throwing an event in 2 months. My CFP's been open for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I've got one talk. And it's from somebody that's not very good. I'm done. That's it. I've already lost my deposit. Time to just, start a new life with a different name. And in the last 48 hours of your CFP, all of a sudden, the big players start just firing talks in at you, and suddenly you have to turn people away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like this year, same thing as every year. We didn't have enough people, and about the time we started to stress, we had too many. And actually had to turn down a couple of talks that were good.
Oh, wow.
They just didn't have any room for them. In fact, we even had a couple of people that said, well, I'm coming anyways. So, okay.
Talk in the hall.
Bring your talk. Bring your talk. If somebody gets sick or forgets to show up, which happens, I'm not going to name names, but there's somebody here in the security industry that should know better who did that last year. But and in that particular case, Skylar Town was just standing around with a bunch of talks. He wasn't on the list. He said, I can go talk. He's like, what are you going to talk about? I'm going to talk about the last 100 years worth of Locksport. Get up there. So that was, it's definitely nice knowing that we've got more than we need, and that we're still going to be able to put on a really good show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Honestly, I think the only thing we haven't nailed down yet is the entertainment. We got kind of known for our entertainment.
Yeah.
It's funny how many computer security conferences just do the standard issue nerd rave.
Any hints on who might be?
No, because we're still trying to figure out what we want to do. But previous events have included burlesque dancers and freak show.
Nice.
Yeah, no, we had the fine folks from Freak Show Deluxe come out 2 years in a row, and then Sinners and Saints Burlesque from Seattle.
Oh wow!
Came down 1 year, and then the next year they came back, but they changed their name. I forgot what they called themselves in round 2, but they were the same people. So, put on a fantastic show. It's nice getting feedback from people saying that, I had honestly just expected the usual Packer conference, pounding techno in a dark room, nobody's dancing, it's too loud to talk, and the chicken wings are cold. So, yeah, we always try to make sure that we do something.
Put on something a little bit more than just
we want to
make it something, an event.
We want to make it entertaining. We want to serve decent food. Something you'll learn if you ever do a conference is the scary world of room nights versus food and beverage commitment. And at the end of the day, we got $10,000 worth of food and beverage commitment. There's no reason why we shouldn't serve you guys decent food. We're paying for it anyway. So
good food keeps me happy.
So
conferences.
Yeah, it starts to become a real problem when you get the things that are like black hat sized.
Yeah.
Where I don't even want to know what their food and beverage commitment is. I'm sure it's ridiculous.
So we've mentioned some of the other conferences, and there's, like you said, over the even past 3 or 4 years, we've seen conferences seemingly spring up out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And other than the awesome entertainment and the food, what makes these conferences important to the security community?
Well, part of it is that you'll find a lot of security practitioners always tell you the most important con is hallway con or lobby con. And part of it's because these are the events where you network. These are the events where you network, and there's this, even if you're a speaker, there's what you might be talking about up on stage, but there's also that thing you're working on that you're going to bounce off your peers in the hallway. It's a chance for us to interact with each other. It's a chance for us to learn new things. Sometimes, we're busy people, and we'll hear that, oh yeah, I keep hearing so-and-so is working on some horrible botnet killer, and, this might be my opportunity to see it. So really what you get from these types of events is that ability to interact with your peers and interact with them and now given that they're some events, especially ones that tend to have a larger vendor influence, tend to turn into more, stakes on the vendor's tab, and
which have their place.
They always have their place. I'm not going to turn down a steak at Morgan's. But at the same time, the security conferences, I know a lot of people that go to places like, say, DEF CON. DEF CON's so big now, you can't see everything. But as long as you hook up with your friends in the bar a couple of times, that almost makes the conference worth it.
Definitely. It seems like especially with our field in security, the social networking is almost more important than I've got this certificate, I've got this training background. It's the old statement of it's not all what you know, it's also who you know and who you can talk to.
It is very much who you know. Certificates and stuff, those have their place. Some situations make HR happy, sometimes it makes your management happy. There are places that say, hey, every one of our employees is a blank certified professional. In some cases, it gives you discount pricing.
On conferences.
And from like your partners.
Yeah.
If you were a reseller of XYZ Corp's firewall, and every one of your guys doing work is certified on that, guess what? You just moved up the chain a little bit in terms of who gets the leads and who gets better pricing. So there's advantages to these things, and in some cases too, there are some certs out there that actually have some merit.
That's definitely.
But they all go through a cycle. Mm-hmm. For example, when I first got into the industry, it was all about having your certified network admin and your certified network engineer cert. Do I still put that on my resume to this day? No.
You don't? Just under historical items?
I ought to. I'm curious that would get me jobs someplace. But, it was a cert that was at the time that you had to have. Mm-hmm. You want to work in a network environment, you had to have that cert.
Yeah.
But then it became washed out. Everybody had it, including people that shouldn't have it. Mm-hmm. And then it went away. Yeah. And you see that with every cert. And sometimes the certs stick around a lot longer than they should. But, there's always a moment when they first come out, and some are good. Some are just, right out the gate. It's
It's a policy cert. It's an HR cert.
Yeah, it's an HR cert. It gets you past that question on the job or on the phone interview. The cert thing is, they come and go. Yeah. It's one of those things. And some certs stand the test of time. Things like the CCIE.
Oh, yeah. You got a really technical cert there.
I know people that have been doing Cisco thing. I know people who have been doing Cisco stuff, technical Cisco stuff for like 10 years. Failed it the first 2 or 3 times they took it. Yeah. Because they couldn't handle the practical. And these are people that did Cisco things on a daily basis. Yeah. So that gets some merit with me. It's another thing if it's just like, oh, you sat quietly for 45 minutes in the background and here's your cert. Yeah.
You read that book and then took the test. Oh, that's good for you.
Yeah. About the time there's boot camps that guarantee passing, it's time for the cert to go away.
Yeah, most definitely. It's but on the subject that we definitely it iterates again, not what you have, but the group that you can talk to, the people that you can have those lobby cons with.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's better than any cert I know of, is the fact that I know that I have a rapport with a lot of people in the industry, that if I need desperately to get a hold of somebody at Symantec, I got a couple people I can call. That if I need to know that, some company is pen testing something and my company is interested in hearing about it, okay, I know the people who work there.
There's a communication chain.
Yeah, I can reach out to them quietly and say, hey, are you guys working on our thing? No? Okay. And then just walk away from it.
So, and we've talked a lot about what the conferences are good for those of us in the security field, but I know that there are a lot of people out there, and a lot of people in the Dev Central community who, they may not be a security pen tester, they're not a security manager, they know some of the security concepts, but are just interested in learning more. Do you have recommendations on maybe conferences or groups that they would be good for someone who's just interested right now?
Well, I'm trying to think of who are some of the good groups out there. Now, obviously, if you're interested in more of the hacking aspect, see if your town has a 2600.
Most definitely.
This first Friday of every month, you go find 2600. Go to 2600.com. There's a list of meetings. See if there's one in your area. Since they're not centrally organized, they're variable quality. I mean, the Los Angeles meeting when I used to live down there would sometimes get upwards of 60 people.
Wow.
Have demos. I mean, and they would go on until 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I've also heard from people that have come to visit the LayerOne that, oh yeah, back in Wichita, there's only like 3 people and they're a bunch of gamers.
Yeah.
And all they do is sit around and game. So you can check that out. Check to see if there's a DEF CON group in your area. The DEF CON meetings, once again, vary in size and quality. I happen to really like our DC 206 meeting here in Seattle. I'm trying to think.
I know at least in the Seattle area, we have a pretty active OWASP group.
Yeah, we do. We have an OWASP group, as well as a number of product-specific groups as well. Like, I'm not sure if the Snort users group is still going.
Well, a G-Slug, I know.
Yeah.
Which is a Linux user group, which often stems into the security topics.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good bridge, too. If you go find your local lug and check it out, you'll find people there that are interested in security. And a lot of times you'll find people that are just getting into security. So while you might not be able to learn a lot from them, you can kind of journey with them together. And ultimately, that's how you figure things out.
Learning together.
I can stand up on a stage and tell you about how I did something and how you can do it too. But really, at the end of the day, how you learn something is by doing and by sitting down. And that's how a lot of people started hacking.
Most definitely.
Every time I call this number, the modem answers. I don't know what it is or why. So I'm going to keep calling it and trying to connect to it and trying to figure out what. That's how you ultimately learn things. Back then, it's also how you ultimately ended up in jail, but it's that desire to basically, I don't want to be told. Being told how to do something doesn't mean I'm now able to do it.
Yeah, it's once you've done it and then come back and teach it.
Yeah. And that's the real trick, is that I've watched over the years I've been in this community, I've watched people come in as students, basically. They've come in as noobs and sort of, learned something and then ultimately became a standout member in that field. So that's kind of neat to watch, where you watch somebody show up and say, yeah, I'm really, really interested in disassembling code. I'm really interested in disassembling, viruses and, seeing how they, encrypt themselves. And then you watch them go from being really interested in it to suddenly they are the foremost authority on it and they're speaking at conferences about it. And a lot of that comes from the fact that they weren't content to just read a book about it or have somebody tell them what to do. They may have done that to get a starting point, but they ultimately just went out and did it.
Yeah. And especially with today's environments and the virtualization capabilities, it's actually becoming easier to, I want to throw up a lab of 20 machines and test hacking in a safe and non-illegal environment.
Yeah, no, cheap consumer-grade hardware is probably one of the best things that could have happened to the hacker community.
Oh, yes.
For the longest time, it's why did you hack the mainframe? Why did you hack the mainframe at your local university? Because I don't own a mainframe. That's why. If I had one, I wouldn't hack yours. That was kind of the attitude. But now, when I can sit back, for the longest time, when the hardware market first fell out, it was awesome being able to say, man, I can get consumer-grade PCs for a couple $100. I can get me one of those 10-base T hubs.
The powerhouse.
Yeah, plug them all together, and I can, when I'm not playing Quake, I can, I can basically build my different Linux machine and my Windows NT machine, and I can hack them. Now with virtualization and cheap pricing,
most definitely.
You could sit back and say, yeah, I want a Core i7 processor, 32 gigs of RAM, a couple terabytes of storage. I'll make sure that processor's got its virtualization bit, and then I'm going to go find my Hyper-V of choice. I'm going to build out a fully, depending on which hypervisor you use, you end up building out a fully dynamic model of a corporate network, right down to VLAN tagging and all the other craziness, as well as the fact that you can now also, a lot of that network infrastructure, virtualization for a while there was like, okay, great, I can put Hyper-V on a box and I've got, 3 Windows boxes running in my Windows box. And, kind of now there's a virtual switch so they can talk to the internet and each other.
Yeah.
But then you get folks like F5 that have like virtual appliances. That takes the game to a whole new level where I can sit back and say, okay, I want to take an F5 and I'll put a load balancer in my virtual network and see how it affects my virtual corporate network before I go buy one and potentially either spend too much or not enough.
It's been great for pen testing the F5 and the data center firewall. They put out the virtual firewall in play and they run the pen testing in the virtual environment and go, oh, yes, it's doing everything the firewall should.
One of the advantages I've seen too with the virtualized environment is you also get that, you get that sort of, you get something you never had previously, even building your little home network and hacking it. It's sort of like when you see like a law enforcement training and the guys are running through the buildings doing stuff. There's always the guys on the catwalks being able to walk over them and look down and study them. So you think you did good, but you screwed up here and you need to work on it. You do the same thing with Hyper-V. I now have, not only do I have this dirt cheap imitation corporate network running in my virtualized environment so I can test how things work, but I also have the ability to hook into that. In fact, there's actually, just the other day, I saw somebody who's working on the code.google.com. There's somebody's working on a Wireshark shim.
Into a Hyper-V?
I can't remember what it was. Yeah, I think it was Hyper-V.
Oh, wow.
But Hyper-V or I know actually it was VMware.
Okay.
But they're working on a Wireshark plugin, so literally I can now sit back and say, okay, not only are these machines doing things and I'm doing things with the machines, but I'm also able to sit back from the catwalk and look down on the entire system and capture what I want, particularly if I'm seeing a situation where, okay, this virtual firewall is supposed to be blocking a bunch of packets coming through. But for some odd reason, every 5th UDP packet comes out the other side. Let's look into that and find out why that's occurring before I have to troubleshoot it in real life.
It's definitely come such a long way in just even the 10, 20 years. It's amazing to watch, and I really look forward to see what's going to come out in the next 10 years.
I'm a little scared about what's going to come out in the next 10 years.
Honestly, it's but we'll see. So I do want to thank you for your time, and thank you for talking with me, Noid. If people are more interested or want to get involved with LayerOne or want to come down to LayerOne, where can they go? When is LayerOne conference?
Okay, LayerOne, you can go to www.layerone.org, LAYERONE.org, and it's going to be Memorial Day weekend in May, which is the 24th and 25th of May at Clarion Hotel in Anaheim, California. It's always a good weekend, weather-wise. The fact that it's a holiday weekend means to fly the family down there, go to the conference, and then take the kids to Disneyland.
It's guaranteed to be a good time. I do want to thank Black Box Research for hosting our interview today. And again, thank you, Noid, for taking the time to speak with me.
No problem.
Have a great day.